I would think the first occasion I ever had a chance to enter Springbok Heights would have been round about 1966. And I was attracted to it because of its style.
A tall, very handsome, very accomplished building, in my mind, from the 30s. An apartment building.
Its design. I loved passing it. I still love passing Springbok Heights. I still love everything about it. I look at it. I sometimes think, gosh, I should have that translated into a piece of jewellery as a pendant or something.
It has all the characteristic features of the 30s, and in particular a fantastic vertical shaft in the centre.
I remember particularly being struck by the foyer. It was an absolute nick. Everything shone.
Good morning, Maven.
Good morning. I mean, it was in a perfect state, whereas most of the other buildings around they'd taken out all that Art Deco and put in new modern things.
But I imagine as an undercurrent the individuality of that building, the fact that it is not a building that is according to a practice and a pattern and a mould that it currently we find. Probably that's what attracted me to it.
And I did think then this is a wonderful place.
Despite the darkness in terms of woodwork and things like that, there was a feeling of light.
Queen Victoria Street is a particularly handsome street in Cape Town, there's no doubt about it. And it is one of a number of buildings that give it its identity, whilst there's no other building like that building, Springbok Heights, on Queen Victoria Street. It is virtually opposite the synagogue of the Gardens, which was designed by the mayor of Cape Town, as a matter of fact, apparently, who was not Jewish.
There were eccentric characters. There's some really mad characters in the Gardens.
I focus in the Queen Victoria, and it's very nice in Queen Victoria. Don't take fucking photos of me, please.
You could live with the company gardens as your garden and walk down Queen Victoria Street to the centre of town.
And I can walk through the long street paths where I go to wash myself in the morning. In 1975, they first installed modern plumbing here at the Springbok Heights.
How did you ever go to the toilet before 1975?
The area is notorious for ghosts, strange spirits, strange people. The Gardens, in fact, was very much a forest in the early days. The Gardens would be perfect for a Satyr. When one speaks of the building and the garden, you cannot actually separate them. And I think that the gardens of the buildings were designed almost around one another. And as the gardens shrank and became formalized and minimalized, some of the buildings disappeared. The rather strange houses and the equally strange tenants disappeared. And one or two remained, like this particular building.
Obviously, when you visit a building at different times of the day and evening and so on, you begin to get to know how it works, and you bump into various people in the foyers, and
it was filled with some wonderful people.
But they were a bit like furniture, so to speak. They seemed to be quite odd people.
There's Wouter that lives in 704, Wouter Malan.
Well, hello. Welcome to my humble abode. Do come inside.
He's, after all, the trustee in charge of cleanliness and extermination here in the Springbok Heights.
He seemed to be in charge of the building.
Well, actually, I'm the chairman of the body corporate of Springbok Heights. Pest control is a very difficult portfolio to have in a building like this one is situated in the heart of an African city centre.
And also, it's incredibly bad lift. So you had to shout to make sure that you were going to be received on whichever floor you were going to. You had to say, I'm coming up now, and then they would wait as this lift slowly cranked itself up.
A rather tight, confined set of apartment spaces, but extremely well ordered, I thought, from the word go. The way the services worked, the way the stacks of plumbing and water systems, the storage system, and so forth.
How large exactly is your flat?
Big enough?
I certainly do know, and I recall perfectly well arriving in winter and taking off an overcoat and sort of banging my hands on virtually all the walls of the apartment in the process.
It was a very dingy, tiny flat.
I recall that in that flat, the bed was in an alcove and the sitting room was 1.5 meters away. So yes, I mean, dimensions are really quite tight.
This is my little kitchen. As you can see, it is not very big.
But having said that, you know, what is an apartment up in the sky, which is what that architecture is about? It's about a series of shelves and contained spaces, some more private than others, that perform their relative functions from bedroom to sitting room.
Look, don't get me wrong, we are totally okay here. Just, you know, sometimes I just feel like I'd like a little bit more, just a little bit more room, you know.
The flats are very small, and that's what I must say I like about it. I love the size of the flats, because that's very much a metropolis thing.
I think I need a smoke.
Yep. It's quite something, huh?
And I began to look at the building again, and I realized that it was actually quite an extraordinary building. And I suppose that was when I decided to write about it.
It has endured lots, it has probably accommodated lots of people, and although there may be some discomfort in that tightness, there seem to be other characteristics that are considered to be of considerable value, that go beyond that constraint of some limits in space.
Then, of course, it has all the features with woodwork and a sense of space in a constricted space, which is actually amazing because it's so narrow.
This building is quite extraordinary. It has sort of Disney quality, I think. Bendy and strange.
With that fin that runs in the centre, and then that series of balconies that very beautifully push themselves as far out as possible, yet letting that central spine go up, and then curving back in a very sophisticated, accomplished, elegant kind of resolution. The shadow lines that are cast and the way that those curves, which always glisten one way or another, virtually irrespective of where the sun is. Springbok Heights really is part of a family of international architecture that is of a period. But in actual fact, it was like the crest of a wave. And I think it's a very powerful icon.
I've been living in Springbok Heights ever since I first moved in here with my mother in 1968.
I first moved into Springbok Heights with my girlfriend.
You had a girlfriend once.
I suppose it was a little bit naughty of me to call her that. I mean my mother. But she has long since been passed over, and I am on my own now.
My mother passed away in 2002. Her death was a major event in both our lives. Mine especially. She simply woke up dead one morning.
What sort of people lived in the building when you and your mother first moved in?
Oh, poorer people.
There's some ridiculous thing like 20 rand a month or something to stay in a flat which was in the centre of town.
It took a couple of years for me before I could get the mortgage bond from Volkskas to buy my own flat for 50,000 rand from the Rent Control Board.
I think those kind of buildings, particularly when there was rent control and people could live in them at a reasonable rate, did imprison people.
Then I slowly worked my way up to become a trustee. But I am not the only famous politician to have made my residence here at Springbok Heights.
It was very strange because growing up on the other side of the mountain, I'd never met a nationalist. And they must have, I think they were all in Springbok Heights actually.
The honorary late Wouter Malan, the Herstarte Nationale Partij. He used to own no less than 2 flats here at Springbok Heights.
I think a lot of people like right-wingers like Wouter Malan, a lot of nationalists had flats in town. For some reason they were attracted to that building. For some reason it appealed to them.
Goedemorgen, neighbors.
By the way, what's that on your television screen?
That's the lobby camera. For security.
Do you watch the lobby camera all day?
Wrachtig nee? Are you thinking that I'm lonely and pathetic, mos?
But I think it was really a place for fringe borderline characters, people who'd who'd had a few knocks in life and whose lives had not really turned out as they thought they would.
Can you remember at all what year it was that Wouter Malan and his mother first came to live here at the building?
Ja, the date and the time and the month when Wouter Malan moved into Springbok Heights.
Are the two of you close?
Sorry?
Wouter and I are like joined at the hips, like 2 peas in a pod, like brother and sister, like this.
I mean, we live in the same building, and sometimes I get her post and she gets my post and our letters get confused by accident.
There are very few people who have a strong, unshakable bond, like Wouter Malan and Hilda Steyn.
And in fact, sometimes we bump into each other when I'm walking home from work in the the company gardens, yes.
Are you saying that the two of you are lovers?
Not exactly. If Wouter Malan was more interested in the ladies, and I was 35 years younger, and we were living in the same flat, it would be almost like the two of us were married, mos. Goeiemôre, Wouter.
Goeiemôre, Hilda.
Hoe lyk met 'n koppie koffie daar by my?
Ag nee, dankie, Hilda. Daar is veel genoeg koffie by my. Well, maybe once upon a time there were a closeness shared between Hilda and I. Mama, gale man her.
Wat 'n man, my liewe kind. Wil jy dalk 'n Fransman hê?
Nee, mama, nee. Franse man, dit wil ek nie, want parlez-vous verstaan ek nie.
Dit is my plesier met die boerjong kerels hier.
And I can see Wouter maybe smiled at Hilda once or something, and she immediately fell in love with him. But I can't imagine anyone falling in love with him actually. But
I don't think things will ever be the same between Hilda and I.
Who else lives in the building? Let's see. There's Nathan Golding.
Nathan Golding, the retarded boy on the 8th floor.
Sis toch, gestremde kind.
Nathan was staying up here for a long time, and Nathan is actually disabled.
Well, it's a little bit like Cookie from the television series Morris Doggedag. It's not as ugly though as Cookie, but she's toch more stupid.
Nathan is like the son I never did have.
Well, you see, Nathan used to go to the school, Oude Scholen, Technical High School, where Wouter used to teach.
Oh, shame. Poor Nathan failed matric 4 times before he eventually passed, which is a record for a boy taking functional grade mathematics.
I'm not normal, you know.
Are you in a relationship at all?
I told you, Moss, yes, with Nathan Golding.
But you said that you and Nathan are like father and son. No, I meant an intimate relationship.
Sorry.
Nathan's parents, the Jews from Sea Point, didn't really have much time for him.
Our parents live in another country, London.
But the poor thing, they never wrote him. And they never call him. I know! I've looked in his letterbox. Shame, he's got no friends and no family.
My parents are really busy.
Have you ever gone to visit your parents in London?
Yeah, lots of times.
And do they have a house in London?
Yeah.
Now, Nathan, did you go from Springbok Heights to London by bus or on a train?
Bus.
and I thought Nathan was quite a tragic figure, but very typical of Springbok Heights.
Who else lives in the building? Well, there's that poor Lebanese couple living on the 3rd floor in 303.
I am a logistics manager for a transportation company.
Danny is most like the boy, and Lisa's like the girl.
Lisa's kind of between jobs a bit at the moment. I mean, a bit of a sore point.
And Lisa? Well, I don't think she's the Lebanese. She just hasn't found the right man.
Oh, fuck, man. Fuck, what a doos. I just burnt my hand on this fucking hot plate. Oh, God, would you look at that?
I think you better put some ice on that.
Oh, man, that's the fucking worst thing you can do. Just got to run cold water on it. Otherwise, you're going to get ice burn or whatever.
Nathan's parents bought him the most beautiful flat.
Nathan Golding's unit is the biggest flat, the most modern flat.
With hot water, toilet, and a jacuzzi.
And he's got the biggest electrical bathtub I've ever seen in the whole of Springbok Heights.
It was quite extraordinary because of it was on the top floor and it overlooked everything.
It used to be owned by a Jewish architect called Elliot Burks.
I knew this architect who lived there, and I remember I went to his flat once, and I found his flat quite extraordinary because he had a jacuzzi in it, in the middle of the room, and I'd always thought of those flats as being quite Art Deco-ish and set in a certain style, and there was this very modern, fairly hideous, I think, flat. Probably deserved to be murdered.
Elliot Burks, the famous architect, was murdered by his big black lover.
Springbok Heights is a good place to take rent boys. It's convenient.
Ooh, I can still remember the stench.
Of Elliot's body?
No.
Oh, he was so sweet. And he got it right through. It wasn't something like a bayonet or something.
Mavis and I, we discovered the body.
Hilda, it's this kind of insouciance of the people who live there, who take murder as just part of everyday life, really. She said she heard this clip, clop, knock, knock sound.
That was when his head was being bashed in with a little marble statue of David.
And she just wished they'd stop making such a noise.
And I was thinking to myself, I wish these people would stop that knocking. I lay there all night awake, thinking of a letter of complaint that I could write to these people.
Did you ever think of maybe doing anything earlier, perhaps? Possibly even calling the police and maybe even saving Elliot's life?
No! I never interfere with other people's private domestic affairs.
And in the morning, there she found poor old Elliot, dead, murdered, bashed in the head. I think he'd been bashed. But it seemed to be sort of just part of life at Springbok Heights. Just death in the afternoon, death at night, death in the morning.
For some reason, Wouter didn't go to the Jewish cemetery for the funeral. I warned Wouter he should go to that funeral. Because you know, my mother used to say, if you don't go to other people's funerals, they don't come to yours. Wouter and I, We keep an eye on poor Nathan.
I look after myself. I know how to use the microwave.
Nathan really tries very hard, but he has the mind of a 10-year-old. And myself and the psychologist at Oude Scholen have come to the conclusion that he's incapable of looking after himself properly.
And did Wouter look after that child like his own flesh?
Oh, absolutely. Nathan Golding would not be alive today if it weren't for my certain intervention. It's a bit.
And the Goldings, all their money and all their gold there in England, they don't give us nothing, Wouter and I, nothing for our troubles.
But Nathan is an innocent, and he cannot be held responsible for the sins of his people, and his parents in particular.
Now, aside from your meteoric rise to stardom within the building, do you have any kind of professional life outside Springbok Heights?
Well, you know, for many years I was the physical education teacher at Oude Scholen Technical High School.
You know, for the gestremdes.
I also used to teach drama and music because I always believed in a healthy body and mind for my boys. and the girls as well.
And if I was younger, Wouter might have invited me also up to his flat, like he does with all the other young people. You know, he loves the young people, and they love him back.
That's why he left the school.
I just categorically want to state that Wouter Malan has always believed in our children, and they are our future, and he teaches them well, and he lets them lead the way, and shows all the beauty they possess inside. Excuse me.
But Nathan Golding is the only thing I walked away with from that God-forsaken place. That and my monthly pension.
Nathan, where are all these clumps of fur coming from?
They're not for me.
Then whose hair is it, Nathan?
It's my friends.
Is it a girlfriend?
I wondered who gave you permission to speak with Nathan Golding.
But you're not allowed to speak to Nathan Golding. Do you have the permission of his parents? Or Wouter?
Wouter says girls are for faggots. It's the half-box here.
Of course it is Nathan's imaginary friend, because we all know what a hyperactive imagination young Nathan has. And that is all I am prepared to say on record about the matter of Nathan Golding.
Who's that on the lobby camera?
Oh, that's nothing.
But I saw someone.
Strange spirits, strange people. Certainly I've met some very strange characters when I was at school in that area. So whether it is a vagrant who has lived in the area, hidden the bushes, is coming in, whether it is some kind of disabled person, mutated person, whatever.
Oh, I think it's just a bergie being let in by one of the tenants. You know, they're from the gardens.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were someone attached to Springbok Heights who had a goat-like appearance.
Is this now the infamous Satyr of Springbok Heights?
I am not sure I know what it is that you're all talking about.
What do you two ladies know about this Satyr creature?
Huh?
Mag eens, hoe weet jy van die halfbok?
In ancient Greece, if we speak about satyrs, the first kind of form of the satyr, and it's not to be confused with a centaur, was someone that was half human and half animal.
It is like a Portuguese without any clothes on, but only far less hairy.
That halfbok is the single biggest problem in our building. Well, after the sewage and the water pressure and the cockroaches and the rats and the arrears in the levees.
The satyr, yes, the satyr is a wily or mischievous creature is the other thing.
Sis, man.
He used to play in the lift all night, stopping on every floor. And he also breaks open all our refuse, looking for food, Wouter thinks.
You've always got to go back to the image which it is based on, a goat. A goat will find where it can steal something, or eat something probably repulsive.
He makes his number 1s, 2s and 3s. And I've seen him with my very own 2 eyes right in front of my face on the lobby camera.
It watches, observes.
And I know that it lusts after my body. And that it watches me through my keyhole in the evenings when I'm entertaining my gentleman calls. Why don't you just knock and come in, half-book?
Sis, man. I just hope that AWB dude manages to get rid of it.
The characteristics of the satyr is complete immorality and lust, sex.
And that makes me feel very unsafe.
It's so big and male and hairy. What if it tried something with one of us? Hey?
It wouldn't try anything with you.
It now lives with the rats and the cockroaches in the motor room of the lift. I don't even go down there anymore because it smells like a whorehouse at low tide.
It's also a very smelly creature.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Hilda, wat is daai reuk?
Och, jy weet, was daai halfbok.
But vermin is always a problem when living in a block of flats. You are only as clean as your filthiest flats. And we have had endless problems with this creature.
I don't like it. It's fucking there all the time, under the lift. It's streaking its big fat man dick across the gardens. It's looking through people's windows, jerking off over their washing.
Which I wouldn't say is humorous, but I would say mischievous.
Look, I just think we should take a bit more time to try and understand this guy.
I tell you who does understand it. Is that it's Bum Buddy,
Who's the bum buddy?
the retarded guy.
In the penthouse.
It's a question of an animal that is able to observe its opportunity. And so it plans. You just have to look at its eyes and you know immediately trouble is coming. And the moment your defenses are down, it moves in.
It has gradually and cunningly moved its way up into Nathan Golding's unit. And ever since that happens, there's no more hot water in the block of flats. And there's no more bloody hot water in this block of flats because that stupid creature baths twice a day that use electronical bath.
He's my best friend forever.
You know, Nathan has got no friends except for me.
Yeah. But Wouter's really old.
The boy now thinks he can take care of himself.
Well, he is 32 years old.
31 and a half, actually.
Nathan Golding, who was slightly simple, but I didn't think always simple, but he was simple. And he had this sort of creature that had arrived to look after him and had kind of taken command of his life and taken over his flat.
And that's what the goat does. And you think, right, you're going to move on me now, darling. No, not a chance in hell. But it will. It'll wait until your defences are down and go for it. Whether it's a gate that's opened or some biscuit left around or an old tin can or the fact that you've just at that moment bent over, in will come the goat.
And I have evidence to prove that that creature has been sexually molesting Nathan Golding.
And he abused him and everything. And that's not right.
And it's probably actually, talking about bent over, is one of the reasons that the images of Dionysos and Pan, the goat, of him raping or seducing or sodomizing, whatever word you want to use, the young Bacchus Dionysos, is to do with where the goat goes for the bottom. Just because you're no longer looking at it, that's the point. Keep your back to the wall. As such.
I mean, I think he used Nathan and... Look, Nathan was quite desperate too, so... but I think he thought that salvation had come, but in fact, it was the opposite.
The Hofbok is obviously just using Nathan for free boarding and lodging so that we can't kick him out or exterminate him.
I've tried everything. I've tried a rent-a-kill, an oracle, but they failed.
No, but if I'd seen him in the building, I would have called the police the day I saw him.
He's very hard to catch.
Oh, my friend, it is far too clever to let you get up close to it.
It's also a wily creature, and it is very much a creature of the rocks and the forests, and manages to escape.
I would have had him locked up in an hour, I promise you.
Wouter was trying to get him officially declared a rodent by the health inspector. But now that he's a resident and not a rodent, Wouter's hands are now tied, unfortunately.
I mean, there was a way I would have got a private security company to come and take him in a van and remove him to Carletsdorp.
No, I don't understand why. I mean, there's enough space in my bed, and I can feed him from my own food.
But Wouter says that he has now come up with a final solution for this Hofbok.
Here at Springbok Heights, we are wedged between a hard rock and the deep blue sea, and I'm now compelled to take matters into my own hands. As my pa used to say, the ox is slow, but the earth is most patient.
Simpletons are very attractive to people, apparently, which is why they're always getting screwed and why they have to be sterilised in the end.
Is he here with us right now, Nathan?
He's hiding from you.
I mean, look, we're totally okay here. It's perfect for the two of us.
No, I have seen those relationships come and I've seen those relationships go. I give those two lesbians another 3 months here together. Look, I've got nothing against them. In fact, they keep to themselves. And they do not behave in a way that is inappropriate or injurious to the reputation of Springbok Heights. But that male lesbian is here to stay forever. Oh, and I get a very strong feeling that that female lesbian is just passing through only very briefly like a thief in the night. I have been watching that creature with a fine-tooth comb, and I know that it is already having sexual relations with the female lesbian. It is very sad, but it is in fact the inevitable story of Springbok Heights.
Have you ever been in an intimate relationship?
Oh, well, You see, when je eet een lekker maaltijd en die ijskast. Wil je een stukje hierin?
Ja, dank je meneer.
En een beetje koffie?
Ja.
A pederast was a teacher who would teach you how to have sex. And the best way to do it is, first of all, to have sex with you.
I mean, butterflies don't like old butterflies. They look at young butterflies. It's nature. Well, also, those schoolboys are quite attractive. I wouldn't mind sleeping with them, actually.
Well, I suppose I'm really quite happy now.
I think Wouter Malan is evil. No, I don't think he's evil at all. He's gay. Is that evil? I don't know. I often look, even at my age, I look at those boys, especially those Afrikaans boys, I must say, go to Jan van Riebeck, and they look very attractive to me. And maybe they only are 12, I don't know.
But my learners, they were always prepared to accept me exactly the way I am.
The people in Springbok Heights might have had really interesting lives up until the times that they ended up at a certain age in Springbok Heights where things have all gone a bit haywire.
They were itinerant or avant-garde or stuck in the building.
I think it's a very interesting phenomenon because it speaks to the reality that architecture, particularly if it is if it's good architecture, an accomplished piece of work, it does gather to itself a coterie of people who, not necessarily for all the same reason, find a sense of belonging.
And I think the building does become part of the fabric of their lives, really, and they just can't imagine living anywhere else. And I think Springbok Heights is certainly one of those places that I think it fulfills something in people's imagination.
And I'm now very close to throwing in the towelettes and leaving this place. But where is there was for a poor thing like me to go?
It's a warm environment. It hasn't the horror and coldness of what I see in more recent buildings.
Springbok Heights is really a planet. It's its own little world.
Well, I have no reason to believe that they either had made a decision that it was for short-term residency or for long-term. I don't think it's in either or. It's choices that people make.
Now that's very interesting. You would have thought Hilda Steyn would have moved out, but she actually moved further in, really. She's there for life now. Once a murder cements you to a place.
Did they stay stuck? Possibly yes. I mean, if I were to live there, I'd stay stuck.
Those of us who have lived here for many, many years, especially Hilda Steyn, we even start losing the ability to speak proper.
Where do I begin?
Well, now I have, of course, all these books. Some of them show statues from Pompeii, and well, basically here it's the god Pan teaching the panpipes to the young Dionysus, and then here you have a satyr who is wanting to be penetrated sexually. And here is a satyr having sex with a goat, which is very Australian, I suppose, and keeps it all very, very exciting.
O, gits my, wat is baie vuil, nie?
Ek kry my lief.
Mama, ek wil 'n man hê. Wat 'n man met die kind, wil jy dalk 'n Hollander hê? Nee, mama, nee, 'n Hollander, dit wil ek nie, want klompe dra, dit sal ek nie. Dit is my plesier met die boerjong kerels hier. Mama, ek wil 'n man hê. Wat 'n man met die kind, wil jy dalk 'n Duitser hê? Ag nee, sis, mama, nee. 'n Duitse man, dit wil ek nie, want schweinewors, dit vreet ek nie. Jawohl! Achtung, Hilda, Achtung, want dit is my plesier